Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. Just for interview's sake, do you mind just spelling your name for the camera, please?
David, David, R is in Russell. Last name Webb, Webb. Founder and CEO of the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center, the Empress and sign. Okay.
Great, thank you.
And so we call it AKA or DBA, the Funk Center, all one word.
Yes.
That's the easier name. People say the Funk Center.
Thank you. And so yeah, if you could just kind of look my direction throughout the interview, that would be really great. So thank you. Okay. So I'd like to begin in our Act 2. We're talking kind of about the history of Dayton, and so I'd like to begin with some questions about Dayton and your experience living here. So you said in your TEDx talk you gave back in I think 2016 or so that your family moved from Tennessee to Dayton as part of the Great Migration. And there are a lot of great cities in Ohio. So what was it about Dayton that made this the place your family wanted to start a new life in, as opposed to maybe other cities in the area?
Well, that's a great question. At that time, my father was in World War II, and he left. He came from Tennessee to Dayton, and then went to World War II, and then came back. He worked at Frigidaire because Dayton, Ohio, was a hub of industry at the time. You could get a job anywhere, and it was really, really, really prosperous for our family to be in that area in West Dayton because everybody was working just about. It was a store on every street corner just about. A lot of African Americans at that time, it was Negroes, were going to church, and it was a big, beautiful family at that time. We understood the meaning of family values at that time as a young person coming up, and my dad and my mother put that in us.
Thank you. Yeah, that is really interesting. I've enjoyed learning about that, about Dayton and its history. And so, being born, you were born in Dayton, correct?
That's correct.
So that means you have been able to experience a lot of changes and ebbs and flow of the culture of the city.
Yes.
And that is something else I've really enjoyed learning about, the strong identity and creative power. How do you remember the arts and culture of Dayton from your childhood?
Well, a lot of the arts and culture for my family and me and my neighborhood, we started in church. We grew up in Malavet Church of God in Christ. Church was a big part of the culture. You learned in church, you read in church, you went to Sunday school in church, you played instruments in church, you sung in church. That was the big culture for me. Church was a big culture. And then from there, you go to schools and you learn education in schools, learn music in schools, high school, and et cetera.
Well, kind of getting into that, so you spoke in your TED Talk about how your mother is the one who drugged you. That
Yes,
was a funny bit.
yes,
You had
yeah.
lots of different opportunities, like you said, church and drum corps, music classes. So you could pursue your instrument of choice, despite I heard the story of your teacher giving you the flutophone.
Yes, that was hilarious.
And I'm sure all moms know that supporting their kids through different activities, athletic or artistic, is time-consuming and a big commitment. So, why do you think it was so important to her that you were given a chance not just to learn a musical instrument, but one that you were excited and passionate about?
Well, some parents, they wanted to make sure our kids were being busy doing things, not just in the neighborhood, but in school learning the arts and learning how to play the violin and learning how to play the flute, the drums, the piano. That was big. And because later they felt once you learn that skill, you have something to fall back on in a musical instrument. But at that time, I think my mother and father, they wanted us to do something instead of us getting in trouble. They wanted us to be prosperous and learning things and stay out of trouble. And so when my dad came home around 4:30 from Frigidaire, he always says, what y'all learned today? What you learned today? What you did? And he always asked us questions. And that was great for us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really powerful, to have someone believe in you and really.
Yes.
It's interesting that being framed as not just an activity for fun, but like a skill and something that really enriches your life.
And having that skill and playing the instrument, it stimulates your mind, heart, soul, and body. And that was one of the big things. And I go back to church. Church is a big point of the African American music. Church.
So in looking back to the period when funk music was created and proliferated, really, especially in Dayton, it was a time period of great unrest and change. We've been talking about things like the Civil Rights Movement, the Vietnam War, and then local issues like the Dayton race riots and extreme segregation and economic hardships. So what do you remember about like these events, or kind of like mood around your childhood?
Well, I was in kindergarten at Jackson Elementary School, so let's go back to that. I remember when Martin Luther King got killed. It came over the loudspeaker. And my parents, we never knew about racism. I never knew about the N-word. We never did that because we had a family of love. When I got in school, then that's when I learned from other people what was happening. But my parents kind of guarded me and guarded our brothers and sisters of that. But I remember the race riots and the civil unrest and how things were going on the west side, where you couldn't go on one side of a bridge. You had to go here, where people were hurt, and they were feeling they were being oppressed in a lot of things. But it was an interesting time in school. But the Dayton Public Schools at that time, I felt they handled that quite well. We were safe. You know, you had your ups and downs at any school, but we were safe, and we were mindfully conscious on what was going on, where the principal came over the loudspeaker and talked about things and told us to have a nice day. And God be with you, and that was a big thing. And one of the things we loved at that time, prayer was in school, big time. Prayer was all the time. We did the Pledge of Allegiance, we did the National National Anthem, and that they were big things in everyone's life at that time, even black and white.
That is interesting, because that is quite a bit different, I would say, from the way public schools operate today. Thank you for explaining that. So, kind of coming off of that difficult time you said, how do you think the arts and music gives individuals and the communities an opportunity to express themselves in times of difficulty or change?
That's a great question, too. Again, Dayton Public Schools was our energy to learn instruments, and from the marching band to the drum corps, the piano classes, because at that one time we used to have all city band from different schools were around the district. They were picking special people who gifted was super great, and so they featured them, and I was part of that, and I was happy about that. I was part of that. But the band teachers cared. They really cared about the students. The band mothers, the band fathers, the band boosters. It was a big family, and that's what I loved about it.
So you said the
all-city band. Like you had different schools, from the Fairview, the Patterson, the Kaiser, or elementary schools. They grabbed the best of the artists or the performers and put them together, and they did a concert, like a spring concerts, and yeah, it was really nice.
That sounds really fun. Are there like other activities you remember doing when it came to like band? Like we've been talking about parades, or kind of like.
Oh yeah, we were in parades. Yeah, we was in competition and parades and stuff. Went to band camp, and people, we kind of laugh about that because American Pie. We laughed at the movie American Pie one time in band camp, so everybody kind of laugh about that. That's a crazy movie. That's a whole nother thing. But yeah, going to band camp, learning music, learning education. That was one of the big keys of my life and the other students' life, music.
Well, thank you for answering the questions. We'll take a small breather, because that's all.
No, we can roll. Let's go roll. Let's let it roll. Let's
Do you
roll.
mind if I take a
Yeah, go
break?
ahead. Yeah. Everybody doing good? You sure?
Thank you.
No. That. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna add something to that too. Y'all can add it in. Also, too, we had the Dayton Public Schools, and also the city of Dayton had Parks and Recs. They call it Battle of the Bands, and that's when bands were on every street corner, just about. You know, everybody had a garage band, and that was very important. And so that was huge then, because now you don't see the bands like they used to in schools now. Everybody, I get it. Everybody likes the hip hop sound, or they like the new age stuff. I understand, but when you play an instrument, that stimulates your mind, heart, and soul and body, and that was big in schools. Instruments.
That sounds like a really fun time to be in school.
So that they wanted to fight. We said, okay, we're gonna battle you. I say, well, listen, your band's gonna take on my band. Winner takes all, and that was it.
Oh, that sounds that would be so exciting. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you for all the information about that. Okay, so as we move into acting for the documentary, so that's when we're going to start shining more of a spotlight onto the funk bands that call Dayton home.
Sure.
And kind of like who they were and the impact they had on the community.
Right.
And so, something you mentioned in your pre-interview, and so I'd like to clarify.
Sure.
I'm not looking for like specific information on people or like different bands and stuff. From learning about you and your research, and then through your pre-interview, you really have a unique position of being like a young man in Dayton while these funk bands were around.
Yes.
And so we were hoping to learn more kind of about
Sure.
like, your perspective and how the funk bands affected the city of Dayton. So with all that being said, so how would you first describe your encounter with like funk music? Like where did you?
Oh, wow. James Brown. From the James Brown to Bootsy Collins, Parliament Funkadelic, the Ohio Players, Brass Construction, Earth, Wind and Fire, the Motown sound, the Philadelphia sound of music, the Dayton sound of music, even the newer Minneapolis sound of music from Prince and everything. Yeah, it just took you to another world. Because if you think about it, music was coming out on vinyl. Y'all know what vinyl is, right? Yeah, that was the big thing. You can go down and get a vinyl record, and you're like, oh, wow. And you put it on your record player, and you put that needle on it, and it plays. Then when you scratch it, you got to go get another record. At that time, I think it was like $5.99 or $6.99 for a vinyl album, and that was a big thing. And then you had a 45. You remember what a 45 was, right? A 45 is a little about this big with a hole in it. And you put a little plastic thing in it, put it on the record, and it falls. And those are big, too. So music was plentiful in Dayton, Ohio at that time.
That sounds like a much better deal for vinyl records than it is today. Great. And then in our pre-interview, you spoke about your experience of being a production manager and a stagehand for several groups that were traveling through. And so these bands were really unique and iconic. And so I'm wondering, where did these concerts take place?
Yeah, great question. They used to take Island Park, Hare Arena, University of Dayton. Those were the big places. The Lakeview Palladium was the first when James Brown came to City Dayton. Lakeview Palladium is on Home Avenue and Gettysburg. And this was the African American venue because we couldn't go to Hare Arena. At that time, you couldn't go to a lot of venues. They wouldn't let African Americans play. So it was a place called the Lakeview Palladium. And it later became a music park called Lakeside. So that's what happened right there. And that's what a lot of the black artists come to. Then, way before then, they went down on 5th Street at the Palace Theater. That's when a lot of the big band people from the Dizzy Gillespie's, the big iconic bands was going there at that time, because at that time West Dayton was the hub of entertainment. On 5th Street, the Palace Theater, and all that around that area, it was huge. It was huge. Duke Ellington's, and and I can go on, but it was tremendous at that time in West Dayton.
That's amazing, because I feel like most is like when concerts do come into town, they're like maybe Cleveland, Cincinnati. I'm from Columbus, and we barely get any acts, and so it's really interesting to hear about how this was like a must-stop.
Because you got to remember back at the time in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, it was a racial divide in the city of Dayton, because you can see you had the west side, you had the east side, and you had the river. The Great Miami River separated a lot of the culture, but now things has changed, and to the better, I feel.
So which bands do you remember meeting at these?
Just about everybody, just about everybody. But, and then also one of the things, U92, Ronita Hall Saunders owned a radio station. She was the first African-American lady who owned a radio station. And it was called the Fly City. And I met people from there. I met people at the Palladium. I was a little boy, sneaking out the house, listening to music on the side. There's so many groups, and I don't want to start naming a lot because if I forget somebody, they say, well, you didn't mention me. But a lot of the acts I met and talked to as a young man and as an adult.
That's a really great opportunity. And so, what was your impression? I mean, maybe it was different. You talk about being a young boy and like getting to experience different funk bands, and then being older. But in general, like, how would you view these artists when they came?
Artists and musicians have a different temperament when you meet them, depending on what day it is. But when I was a young boy, was no threat to them. I was asking questions because I wanted to know about how'd you do this, how you do this, and what's a gold record, and how you do this, how you create that. Just general questions, and that's why I compiled all this stuff in my head. When I got older, I felt it was time for having a exhibit of a museum to let them know that we respect you and paying homage and tribute back to you at the time. That's why we wanted to create the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center.
That's actually pretty interesting because I was gonna kind of talk about that, and actually, it is the next question. Yeah. So you said, because I wanted to ask, like, what would you kind of ask them, or what would you talk about in general? And so you said, like, kind of more like questions and like.
Yeah, just like you're talking to me now. You want to talk to the musicians. Everybody has a favorite musician they like, and you say, I want to talk to that person. Now, what's your favorite person you like?
Oh, Taylor Swift.
There you go, a Swiftie. So what would you say to Taylor? The same thing you would say to Taylor, I'll say the same thing. Like, Taylor, wow, how did you do this song? And what was happening this? And when you're on the stage, are you nervous? Or have you ever did something or forget the lyrics? And you want to meet that person. And then when you finally meet that person, you be like, okay, I met that person, and the newness wears off, but you want to touch their hand or say, do you have a shirt or you have a T-shirt I can have or an autograph? You're a groupie, but then after a while you get like, oh, okay, they're just normal people just like we are. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if I met Taylor Swift, might be a little.
Will you faint? You think you faint in front like that?
Yeah, that is really cool, and the opportunity not to meet people that you looked up to so much. Or,
and then there was some you met and you looked up to them and you was like, oh wow, that's not what I thought.
They say don't meet your heroes, right?
Right.
So how would you describe the relationships between the bands and kind of like the general public or like the community, so not just with you but with the people around you?
Everybody's proud of the bands out of Dayton, Ohio, and the Southwest Ohio area, like from Dayton, Cincinnati, Hamilton, Middletown, Indianapolis, Columbus. You always say my tagline is Ohio is the heart of it all for funk music. So many groups come out of Dayton, from blues to country to soul to rock to pop. I mean, Ohio has a lot, from comedians, athletes. It is the heartbeat of it all for, as they say, but I say Ohio's the heartbeat of it all for funk music. And Dayton, Ohio, and Southwest Ohio is the nerve center of funk music.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. I'm always proud to be out of Ohio.
I am too.
Yeah. So, like you said earlier, funk music was coming from all different parts of the country with a lot of different bands. But Dayton boasts the highest per capita number of bands and musicians connected with the funk explosion of the late 1970s.
Right.
So what characteristics or personality makes Dayton funk different from funk coming in out of other parts of the country?
Well, everybody has their style of music. Okay, let's go to the Oakland, San Francisco sound from the Sly Stone and the Tower of Power. Everybody had their different sounds. The Minneapolis sound, Prince, The Time, Sheila Eid, all that, they had a different sound. But Dayton was so unique. All the artists out of Dayton, Ohio did not sound the same. Everyone had their different. When you hear a bass line, that was Slade. You hear the talk box, you knew that was Roger. You hear the all child, good luck charm, you know that was Sugarfoot. There's so many groups. If you hear the high, sweet, always and forever, you know that was Johnny Water or Heatwave. So there's a lot of groups out of Dayton, Ohio, and people forget a lot of other groups like that passed in the 90s, like CeCe Peniston. She's from Dayton, Ohio. And that was big, really big. So it's so many groups out of Dayton, Ohio. But Dayton was very unique sound, came out of Dayton, Ohio. And like great Marshall Jones from the Ohio Players, he said, God stuck his foot in the Miami Valley, the great Miami River, and the sweat off of God's feet ran into the water. That's why Dayton is so funky.
I love that quote. That is I saw it on your website, and that is a good one.
And rest in peace, Marshall Jones. He was great. He was a great mentor for me too.
Okay, so I guess you kind of touched on this then, because I was going to ask, why do these unique
We can do it.
qualities-
We can do it again. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go
Well,
ahead.
Why do those unique qualities help Dayton bands be so successful around the country?
Well, the lot of the like Ohio Players, one of their big hit was "Funky Worm" with Junie Morrison. Junie Morrison did the voice and both of the voices, the granny voice. Me and the Ohio Players going to tell you about a worm. There's a funky worm. That was Junie Morrison, who later did a solo career. Left Ohio Players, did a solo career, and then wrote a lot of music and played with George Clinton and the Parliament Funkadelics. So there's always connection to Dayton in the music industry. There's always connection. And, then you had, like I said, the guys from Heatwave, Johnny and Keith, they left in the United States. They was in the military, left and went to England. They met a guy called Rod Templeton. Everybody remember Rod Templeton? Let me tell you who he is. He wrote for Michael Jackson. He wrote for a lot of people. So see, Dayton's connected in a lot of the places. So hope that helped you out.
No, that's amazing. All these connections back to
Oh yes,
the city of Los
you'd be
Angeles.
surprised. Dayton is connected to a lot of things in the industry.
Great. So a theme that we are focusing on for our documentary is how music can serve as a tool of empowerment, and how music allows people to have their ideas and viewpoints be heard. So this may be kind of a difficult question to answer then, with each band having its own sound and its own really kind of purpose, but what do you think Dayton folk musicians were trying to communicate through their music?
Love, peace, hope, charity. They wanted to be unique in what they have. Every musician has a message they want to put out. They want to talk about the message of war was going on at the time. The Vietnam War was big. Fight the Power was big. Even like some of the hip hop artists started using that too. But Dayton had a unique style of music, and they wanted to reach the public, wanted to reach the world on their interpretation of funk music.
And then, what messages and lessons or ideas did you, both as a young man and today, get out of their music? Like, what did funk music teach you about yourself?
On the one. Everything's on the one. With James Brown, Bootsy, George Clinton, the Players, different artists, and not just Dayton, funk music all around the world. Listening to the style of music, that's great. And, we don't have that music like we used to have now. But a lot of the hip hop artists do sample the sounds out of Dayton, Ohio, and that's huge. And I like that, and I applaud them. But I always tell the hip hop community, get back to the Funk Center. We're trying to establish a home for the legacy of funk music by acknowledging the artists who brought this art form to life by showcasing the funk experience. That's big. That's big.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Those are all the questions I had for Act 3, so...
Drink water.
Yeah.
Everybody doing good? Y'all learn a lot? Are you sure?
Doing great.
You got a question? Go ahead.
That was fantastic, seriously.
Well, I love her voice. I love her voice so much. You remember? You ever see Saturday Night Live when they did that radio? Those girls on the radio. You know what I'm talking about? Where you know what I'm talking about. What's that? They sound like NPR ladies. They were talking about the. You see that before?
I don't think so.
Well, if you see it, y'all gonna crack up. They talk about Betty White was on there. She's talking about her muffin and different things like that. But you have to see that. You sound just like her. And she said, "Okay, we're gonna take a station break." And well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
I just have
Yes, go ahead.
one question about the spelling for Miss Morrison for Funky Worm. What was her first
Junie's a guy. His name is Junie Morrison. Junie Morrison.
Junie?
Yes, Junie.
That's what I put down the first time.
Junie. Yeah, Junie Morrison. Yeah, Junie Morrison.
Thank you. You're asking.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I said a lot of.
I thought you might have said Judy.
No, Junie Morrison. Junie Morrison. So we like if the tape is Junie Morrison. Everybody, you can just put that in.
Great. Okay, so as of right now, our fourth act is about the preservation of the history of funk
Sure.
and the resurgence of Dayton art, which is something, clearly you are very involved in.
Sure.
And so I know you said in your pre-interview that the idea for a funk museum of sorts was kind of inspired by your opportunities to meet funk artists and learn more about them. What made you understand, even back then, that this art and information you were learning and experience would have historical value and needed to be preserved?
That's a great question. A lot of people at the time was trying to get a museum and trying to do exhibits, and if they went to the side. But I was determined at the time to make this happen, because listening to the artists and listening to their stories and going over their house late at night, and I was recording on some of their guys' their studios and late at night, and as a musician, listening to what they used to say. And I said, if I listen to what they're saying, they're not going to learn not to get stumble over this or stumble over that. So I said, well, let me ask these questions. And so that's why I felt I moved forward ahead with this museum, and I learned what I can do and what I can't do. But yeah, I was very happy by asking questions.
So when did you finally get the opportunity to begin the journey of creating a funk center? Like, could you kind of walk us through?
Oh, about 15 years ago. About 15 years ago, we we started in Denver, Colorado, and I had about like 200 or 300 people, and I pitched them about the Funk Center in Dayton, Ohio. And from there, in 2016, we had an opportunity to be at the library on my old high school site, Fairview, and that's called the Northwest Library. That's my old high school. We used to be there. They tore it down. So Jane Close at the Montgomery County Library, or the Dayton Metro Library, gave me a call and told me, Mr. Webb, I see that you're doing a lot. We want to feature the Funk Center there at the library. So we was there about 8 months or so, and then our time ran out. Then there was a gentleman who approached me and says, well, Mr. Webb, I think we have a spot for you downtown at 113 East 3rd Street. So we got a chance to go down there. It was a groundbreaking for us. A lot of people from all over the world came down. We was down there for maybe like 2 years or so. Then new owners came in and bought the building out of Columbus, Ohio, developers. And I guess they didn't see the vision that we seen, because we couldn't afford the rent and paying other things at that time as a nonprofit. So we left there, and about 2 or 3 years passed, and I spoke with Quincy Pope at the city of Trotwood. He thought this would be a great fit for Trotwood, and him and Chad Downing, we had the conversation, and from there, right now we're on a capital campaign out at the Salem Mall in the city of Trotwood, and we're growing as we do now. We're not open yet, but we will be pretty soon.
That'll be really exciting. Yeah, I hope to touch more on some of those points, but thank you for
Sure.
explaining that. That sounds like, I get that's the very quick, very fast version. But
Yes, yes.
That is really exciting. So you, like you said, you had mentioned that the idea for the Funk Center, you first pitched it in Colorado.
Denver.
Yes. Could the Funk Center be anywhere other than Dayton? Like, is there an argument that it belongs in here in Dayton as opposed to maybe other cities who have some ties to funk?
That's a great question. Everybody has their own thing where it should be, but why not Dayton? Because if you think about Dayton and the surrounding counties, it's tremendous. 12 or 14 surrounding counties, even including if we brought Cincinnati in, that will be part of the Funk Center too, the Southwest Ohio. But yeah, Dayton to me is the hub for funk music, and that's where it's supposed to be. Now other people can argue, but look what per capita, how many groups out of Dayton? Probably like 15 major groups. You got your A, your B, your C groups, but look what's happening. Then your solo artists. But Dayton, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been convinced through all the research. I'm not sure it could be anywhere else either.
Yes, yes.
So there are some comparisons that could be drawn between the Funk Center in Dayton and then the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, which does induct artists from like a number of different genres. So what do you think makes the Funk Hall of Fame like different and necessary as compared to that other museum?
Well, see, they're rock and roll. We're funk. Okay, see, they go, to me, I feel they go out of their genre to bring people in. Funk music, you have rock funk from like Red Hot Chili Peppers. You have different kind of funk music that people from the hip hop, the R&B, the pop. So it's a lot of genres of funk music. We will never die. You know, funk music is there for generations to come. Even young people are listening to the sounds of funk music because it's a lost art form. So, like I said, you have the people say, oh, I want to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but you're not rock. I always tell people that if you contribute and help build the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center, that's your legacy, funk music.
Yeah. So you and your team put in a lot of time and effort, which is an understatement.
Sweat equity.
Into making this dream reality. So how did it feel to open up your location in downtown Dayton in 2018?
Oh, it was excellent. It was like a big relief, and it was like so many people. Like I said, thousands of people came to that little 7,000 square feet, and it was cramped because we had artifacts and memorabilia we couldn't even put in there, but it was cramped. But the experience was great. When you walked in, you felt the Soul Train line. You see the television playing videos of funk artists and people seeing the outfits and they seen the instruments and people were just excited about it. They wanted to reach out and touch it, and we tell people you can't touch the instruments. You can't touch it because they were right there, and the people wanted to touch that. And I don't blame them, but that's irreplaceable stuff that you can't replace or something damage it.
Absolutely. That sounds like it was a really cool place.
Oh yeah, you can see the pictures online, and
I got to see
yeah.
a few videos, and yeah, just like how much stuff was in there, and then it was really like quite interesting. You could tell, even though it was a small space, you could spend like all day walking around and looking at everything.
And one of the things I'm not gonna throw no names around, but I had a lot of major stars call me late at night. I'm in town, David. Can you stop by? I said, all right, I'll get out of bed and drive all the way down to let you in. But it was worth it. It was worth it. It was worth it.
Absolutely. So unfortunately, the downtown location was shuttered in 2019. Has it been like difficult to support either financial or kind of like morale support for this project? And maybe why do you think that?
Great question. One of the things, we are a nonprofit 501c3 charitable organization, and when the pandemic hit, a lot of things left the center. And people wasn't donating money like it used to, and it was put a strain on us. But we're bouncing back, and we ask people to go to our website, thefunkcenter.org. That's thefunkcenter.org, and donate. Because the money that's happening, that you're donating, goes toward instruments, goes toward music education, goes toward things that we can reach out to help young people on instruments. That's all it is. That's all it is about. And we are a great organization of volunteers. No one gets paid on our staff, and that's a blessing.
Yeah.
I'll go back and say sweat equity.
So what do you think the downtown area lost when the Funk Center was unfortunately closed?
Real good question. Real good question. They lost a legacy, an African American legacy. Now, there's only two African American museums at that time. Was in the city of Dayton, Paul Laurence Dunbar and us. And they did a survey, and they did a couple of surveys out of 100 things to do in the region. We were number 25, and it was huge. And we at that time we felt that no one spoke up for us. No one took the time to understand. Then when the city of Trotwood seen that we was a diamond in the rough, then everybody come up, oh, well, you could have came to me. You could have talked to me. I always tell people, your actions speak louder than words. If you want us there, if you want us in the city of Dayton, you could have found a way to keep us there.
Absolutely. Yeah, that I'm sure that was probably a really difficult thing, especially. You spoke
It was
about-
It was very hurtful for the organization and the crew. We felt that we just got left out there at that time. We went to some of the city officials, and they said they back us, they help us, but they never mentioned nothing in front of the cameras about the Funk Center. Never mentioned in front of where, hey, we need to do something. You know, they give you the pat on the back because they never thought this was going to materialize, but it did.
So yeah, kind of moving on to the
Sure.
Trotwood Center, which is so exciting. I love looking at like the the concept sketches online. The center
Yes,
looks like-
yes.
Those are beautiful.
Yes. The Sears site was the old Salem Mall area, and when I was coming up, that was the big thing to hang out the mall. That was really big at the time. A lot of stores were there, and Trotwood was a unique city and growing fast. A lot of economic development was happening out there, and economic development is coming back to this city of Trotwood. And new things are happening in the city of Trotwood. I live in the city of Trotwood, and I'm very proud of the city of Trotwood. I was born in Dayton, raised in Dayton. When I moved to the city of Trotwood, I felt Trotwood is a great place to raise your children, bring a business there, and the culture of music is tremendous in that region.
I'm sure it'll be really exciting.
Mhm,
So what are your hopes and dreams for the new Funk Center building? So how do you hope it'll affect the community?
Great question. Community awareness, community awareness. It's all about the community. We want to give back to the community. That's very important. Some artists and musicians leave town, but we're staying right here in the area. It's going to be an outreach. It's going to be a great, not just a museum, an outreach center for everyone.
That'll be definitely, that's something actually kind of moving into perfectly. So one major goal of the Funk Center, you said, obviously, is music education.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the Funk Box. So the one of a kind device, which is it was very interesting to see online. So
Yes.
what was the inspiration behind creating this device?
And that's a great question. So after we left downtown, you said in 2019, we had to come up with another gimmick or educational tool to let people know we are still existed. So we teamed up with the Tesla Studio group out of Dayton and New York City. We created the Funk Box because at that time, the pandemic was big. So what we did, we had to create a way where we don't have to touch nothing. We can move our hands, and it plays beats and hits and music, and it tells you the history on the screen. So we felt that was the best thing to do to keep us in the flow of music.
Yeah, that's a really clever idea. So it was not only just a way to educate kids about, but it was also to keep the Funk Center's name out there.
Yes.
So who would you say the target audience of that device is? Is it just
Everyone, not just kids, adults. Now, if you see on some of the videos, adults play on it too because they love to play on it. And you see them, city officials from other counties came by, played on it. They loved it. We featured it at the library many times at the library, the West Library off of Abbey. We opened it there. And we featured it in there. We featured it at a lot of places around the area and out of town.
That's really cool. Is it difficult to transport? Like, can you put it in just like a truck?
Yes, we can. yes, we can. When we put lights and effects in it and everything, TV screens and everything, just to have that experience. So you're there. Yes, it's very easy to put in a van and to transport.
That is very clever.
Mhm.
So as you move into the new Trotwood Center, how do you hope to expand your ability to teach music, especially to young people?
Great question. Like I said, it's all about once it's open, people can see it. I can tell you, but if you see it and touch it, you feel it. And we go shopping. If we go shopping for the store, you say, I don't need that. But you see it, your eyes like, oh, I want that. So once it's open, you get to see the experience, feel the experience, and that's what we're doing at the Funk Center.
Yeah, that'll be really exciting when it does open. And so, it seems as though like the music education that the Funk Center offers so far is more geared towards like accessibility and creativity, personal development, rather than like proficiency or individual success. So like, what do you hope that young people get out of the music education that the Funk Center offers?
I always go back to one of my taglines. We're here to educate the public's knowledge in the history of funk music on the one, as James Brown says. The genre of funk music collective of soul to rhythm, a gift for all the generation, YZX, the millennials, the baby boomers. Hope I didn't miss nobody, but Gen Z, all that. We want to cover it all.
Absolutely. Okay, I've just got a couple more questions left then.
Act 2? Is Act 3? Is Act 3 now?
These are just some extra, like miscellaneous ones.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Now I can get a sip. I'll get a sip now. Is it okay?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Am I missing anything, everybody? Am I good? Am I good? All right. Hope I'm not too boring and nothing like that, was it?
This is very interesting.
I can do one of those voices like, I can do one of those boring voices like, yeah, I'm here. Yeah. Yeah, I can do it. You be like, rush it up.
Just out of curiosity,
Yes.
do you have like kind of a favorite age group to say that you like seeing, like learn the music education?
Generation Y, ZX, the millennials, the baby boomers. I try to, all the
Like
generations.
seeing everyone learn about it? Okay.
Because, you know, because one of the things, if you think about this, your parents played music. From rock to soul to country to pop, right? Am I right, everybody? Well, what's your favorite, other than Taylor Smith, music-wise?
Definitely, I grew up listening to like the pop radio on like during the 2010s.
Okay, and you?
Just like classic rock music.
Classic rock, okay.
Folk.
Funk?
Folk.
Folk music, right? What's your,
Oh, I heard a lot of like 70s pop rock.
Right.
My dad,
yeah, and you?
R&B and soul.
Right. So, our parents played music, and that's what we learned, and by listening to them. So we adapted that music because of our surroundings. Okay? Because I know, like, I know some. I went to school when it was busing. I was like in '75, and I listened to a lot of rock from Kiss. I can do soft rock. I know this and that, right? All the kind of music, you know. And they say soft rock. You know what soft rock is? It's really blue-eyed soul, and ain't no such thing as soft rock because they have the R&B sound. They call it soft rock. You know, the Kenny Loggins, Hall & Oates. You heard those groups before? That ain't nothing but soul music, but they call it soft rock. So it's your environment. Whatever you listen to in your environment and whatever you learn in your environment, that's where your music skills is going to come out. Your environment plays a big part.
That is interesting.
Because you know how your parents teach you about this, teach you about that. So you're going to come up with your own thoughts with people because it's all in your environment.
So with the Funk Center, are you hoping to kind of expand people's environments?
Yes. Because funk music is folk music. It's jazz, blues, gospel. It's a melting pot of music. And, you know, once you hear that sound, you tap your foot, you listen to things. You know, when you hear something, you be like, oh, yeah, this is nice. Okay. But there it is, you know. Mm-hmm.
Great, okay. So yeah, just a few more. So funk music has very clearly, played a very important part in your life.
Mhm.
What do you think, like, we as like a community would lose if we lose funk in its history, like especially in the city of Dayton?
It'd be like the Twilight Zone. You'd be like, oh my God, what's going on? But it's not going to go away. Dayton is already etched its sketch in marble funk music, the whole region. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's not going to go away. It's coming back in a resurgence.
So like that, like we could say that Dayton literally would not be the same without funk music?
Yeah, it'd just be another Dayton Flyer town. It'd be another Wright brothers. The Wright brothers. Paul Laurence Dunbar said a speech. That was it. But I mean, when you say Dayton, Ohio, in the music industry, yeah, I know about Dayton, Ohio. You ask any DJ from a radio station, any DJ who spin records in a club, Dayton, Ohio. Any hip hop artist, Dayton, Ohio. Yeah. This person's there. That person's from there.
so your dreams and your goals, it's kind of just like from learning about like what you've spoken about online, they've definitely not just been like handed to you from like all the hard work you put into learning your instrument along with your family, and then continuing to push this dream of the Funk Center even after it was shut down without a lot of support. So what keeps you fighting and optimistic about like your goals and your dreams?
That's a great question. That's a great question. No. To make this happen a reality, making it a reality, that's all it is. We make this a reality, then when I'm dead or gone or passed away or passed the baton, my history of the museum is already sketched with my name and other people's names who put the effort or the sweat equity into making this happen.
I mean, so I know that must be very important to
Mm-hmm.
you because you spoke about in some interviews that you have invested your retirement money into the
Yes,
Funk
I
Center.
invested my time, my money, and my effort because I want to see this happen. So it's a great undertaking, and I feel that this needs to happen for our community.
And then, how do you think your life would be different without music in it? Can you even imagine it?
I'll probably be a farmer. I don't know. I never thought of it like that, but I'll probably just be just a normal guy. Just a normal guy. Get up every day, wash your face, go to work, say hello, kiss the kids, just say, do all this. But no, I think music is a big part of everybody's community, and I think music is a very part. Like we driving on the road, listening to music on the radio. It's everywhere.
Like it is like a part of life itself. It
Mm-hmm.
can't be removed out of it.
No, I don't think so. Because if we go back in biblical times, music was big. Music was big when they went to battle. Music was big when David played music in front of Saul. So music was always there.
And then, so we've talked a lot about funk and music in here in Dayton.
Mhm.
So where would you say music comes from?
Well, that's a great question. I think music comes from your heart and soul and mind and spirit, your experience in everyday life. We all have a song. We all have a dream. We all have a vision. If you're in music and you write a song, you're writing about your experience and how you feel. That's music.
That was really beautifully put. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So that's all the questions I have on my sheet. Does anyone here have anything they want to ask or add or any questions?
Mind if I ask a quick one?
Please.
What do you think it is about Dayton specifically that makes it so culturally and artistically rich? Like the fact that Dayton has a Philharmonic and they have a ballet troupe and they have this incredible music legacy. What about Dayton specifically?
Oh, Dayton has so many music, jazz, funk, bluegrass. I can go on, gospel. Dayton's culture is so rich in music. It's just tremendous. The Philharmonic. We did something with the Philharmonic a couple of years ago with Neil Gilman, and we did a funk concert, and the people respected the music and culture out of Dayton, Ohio. Is tremendous. So Dayton's rich art history from the ballets and the Dayton ballets and the DCDC, Dayton DCDC. The rich culture out of DCDC, it was huge. First, Geraldine London was the first African American dance teacher in the school. It was tremendous. So it's a lot of culture in Dayton. Everybody talk about Paul Laurence Dunbar. Paul Laurence Dunbar did a lot too, but there's other people who did things too. You had inventors come out of Dayton, Ohio, black inventors. So many things happen, So yes, it's very good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate it.
Anybody else?
Well, okay. Is there anything else you would like to add?
I always say this at the end of this interview, right? I always say, Ohio. Can y'all say it with me? Say, Ohio. Ohio is the heart of it all for funk music. Okay? And Dayton, Ohio is the nerve center of funk. Music is harmony. Harmony is music. Harmony is the strength and support of all institutions, especially this funk music, the empowerment of education in my life and yours. Thank you.